All right. Welcome to another Politically Correcting with Jose Pio here at the We the People Podcast Network. Again, we have conversations that friends are having, usually over drinks. So go ahead and crack your drink. This is actually a new drink for Austin here. I've had it many times, so I'm a big fan of this one.
Oh, I'm excited.
I told him not to have a sip until he actually opens it on air and see what his initial thoughts are.
Oh, it smells awesome. I'm just gonna say that.
I'm gonna give it
right off the top.
I'm gonna see if they can put some money towards our podcast here. Maybe we'll get some funding from PBR. Shout out to PBR. It's my favorite camping drink because you can drink those all day and nothing really happens. But this is the coffee version. So cheers. Let's get the conversation started here.
Oh, that's tasty.
You like that
nice.
one?
Yeah, that is.
It's kind of
that
exactly
goes down easy.
It's scary. Don't have too many of them, but it's a good morning one. All right. So let's bring up the embassy. This is obviously one of the top topics of conversation right now. Bring up the, there we go. We got exactly what our president stated would not happen, happened. Now this I can't tell you any softer than a complete failure of leadership. We can't sit here and say that, you know, Biden stated that under no circumstance would we be airlifting people out of the embassy, under no circumstance. And again, this happened under his watch before. And here we go again. Helicopters rescue U.S. personnel from embassy in Afghanistan after he states that would happen. He said that there was no way that they'd be able to take over the city, no way they would take over the country. Yet here we are. And this is a president going against his own intel community. We heard about that before when it was President Trump who went against his intel community and they lambasted him hard. And I agree, you should. When a president goes after his own intel community, you better be betting hardcore. Like I used to be military intel, and I don't think there was ever a time that I was wrong. I think in life, there's hardly ever a time I'm wrong as well. You can ask my wife that. I'm sure she would agree. I'm sure Austin would agree as well. But of course, she's here. My wife is here again. But honestly, this is a complete failure. We're putting people's lives at risk. We're putting military lives at risk as well. And this is an unnecessary risk. You know, this is something that we're putting people in a position for the Taliban to be coming after them. And I wish I had a picture of all the guns that we left behind as well. Man, I should pull that up. If you got time, Austin, pull that up.
I'll take a look.
Yeah, go ahead. But another thing there wants Biden to rush back. President Biden, they wanted President Biden to rush back. And his wife steps in and said, no. His wife said, no. President Biden is on vacation. You can do it without him, or he can just phone it in. Again, this is not okay by any stretch of the imagination. This is not leadership. This is not what we expect from our chief of. I'm upset. I'm upset by this because I'm prior military again. I don't like when we put our military and our civilian lives in danger when they're overseas protecting another country. This is something that's been going on for far too long. We should have been out of that country for a long time. We should have already put in place the mechanisms where the country can take care of themselves. We see it far too often. Let's say like Korea, Germany, where we take over and we fight for a country, and then we end up keeping our military there. Look, is that on the screen for them to see? It is not. All right, good. Look at the weapons that we left for them. And this is something that we're saying, look, in case the government, you know, in case some bad people come after you, these are the weapons that you need to have in order to protect yourselves. Look at the weaponry that we left for them. This is what you need in order to protect yourself against an enemy, foreign or domestic. This is exactly the type of weaponry you need. Now, this is coming from a man who lives in a state in New York where you can't have more than 10 rounds in a magazine to defend yourself. What I see here are M249s, which if anybody knows about M249s in the military, they're heavy as hell. If you know about the drums you got carried with the ammunition, they're heavy as hell. And I pride myself on being the one person in PLDC, that's for the leadership in the military. I ran 2 miles with one of those M249s and carrying the drum. And I'll tell you what, after doing that, you couldn't tell me nothing. I was so, that's like, I want to say that's like 75 pounds. I might be over elaborating on that. It might be more like 17, but still, it's heavy. These things are heavy. And you see the artillery that we left for them to defend themselves with. And that is what our government knows that you need in order to protect yourselves against enemies, foreign and domestic. Let's pull up the next article here. It goes right along with Biden's vacation. And everybody's on vacation. Look at this. Biden's on a 2-week vacation. Again, I don't like to say Kamala Harris. It's Vice President Harris has been non-existent since Inauguration Day. We see what happened when President Biden asked her to go take care of the border. What happened? Not a damn thing. Not a damn thing. She went down there and went to a different city than where all the people are coming through, all the illegal immigrants. Again, I am Latino. I love Mexicans, but at the same time, Mexicans will tell you themselves they would prefer that we come in legally as well because they have jobs to protect. They have families to protect. We don't know who's coming in. We don't know who's coming in with what. That's a tough conversation to say that we might have people coming in with illegal drugs. We might have bad people coming in. We might have, and this is kind of showing a lot in our country now, and I think people are just kind of overlooking it. A lot of the children coming from Mexico are being sold into child slavery, child sex slavery. You think I'm playing. You think this is nothing. You don't think this is actually happening. Trust me when I say, if you looked at the intel, I've worked the border during my military intel days. I worked the border. I'm telling you, these kids are being used to traffic drugs and being used as sex slaves. This is not a laughing matter. This is not something that we should just overlook and pretend that as America, we just need to accept everybody. This needs to be in a safe way. We need to allow immigration in a safe way. We've had over 1 million illegal immigrants come through our border, where we stopped them at the border, and no testing, no vaccines. These are just people that are coming in. Who knows, again, if they're carrying drugs? Who knows if they're being sold into slavery? We don't know if they're actually family members. They don't have documents. They could say, this is my wife and this is my child. And the woman could be looking at them like, just get me into America, please. And that's maybe they're her child. And that guy is just using that family to get over the border. Trust me, a lot of these people have bad intentions. And we need to make sure that we have a border where we allow legal immigration, those who are seeking asylum, to come through, get the help they need, but also in a legal way and in a way where we're not taking them and busing them and flying them all throughout the country to undisclosed locations. Again, this is not Jose Pio talking. This is the news telling us that this is happening. Jen Psaki, I can't even talk about that woman. I'm sorry. I can't with her. I don't like her answers. I don't like the attitude that she has with people that ask her hard questions. Remember when President Trump was receiving these hard-hitting questions, and he sat there and he took it himself, and his press secretary sat there and just answered them. Not, we'll get back to you. We'll swing back around. No, the country has questions, and there is nobody to answer them. There is nobody in charge right now, and there's no one we can trust right now. We are at a sad state in America, and we need leadership on multiple levels. All right, I'm done talking about that. Next one. Afghanistan. Still, look at this. I actually can't see the beginning part, but I know that those guys in the back are the Taliban are screaming, they're chanting death to America. And look at the way that they're being shown in the media. What was it again? They're being, go up a little bit there, Austin, but they seem friendly at the same time. Death to America. We're talking about a country that doesn't give women rights. We're talking about a country that kills gays and transgenders, and they're saying, oh, they're just, you're screaming, but they're being nice. They're being nice when they say death to America. Are you kidding me? This is, trust me when I say I fought against President Trump rhetoric when he says that the media lies. I fought against that for the first good 2 years. There was one point where it was, where was it? Where the when he said there was good people on both sides, and I think it was Minnesota. Was it?
Oh, was that the Charlottesville?
Charlottesville. Yep.
Yeah.
Charlottesville. And I saw the original when he originally talked, and I said that's not all he said. He came out and said he called out the white supremacists. He said he is not okay with white supremacy. He is not okay with the folks who are there to start trouble on a racial level. He was not okay with them. He disavowed them. He said that in the same sentence. And what we saw in the media was they just cut that whole version out. And then they just went after him every time. Well, what about white supremacy? Well, what about the Proud Boys? What about these people? And I'm sitting there saying, wait, I know he disavowed them. I know he said that in the same sentence. So what the hell happened? Why are they showing something completely different from what I saw? And that's when I began to see that President Trump is a terrible liar sometimes. He is not very good, and he's a terrible tweeter. But he wasn't lying when he said that the media lies. He was not downplaying it at all. And I wish those of you who out there, when I post certain articles and they say, well, that's not a what did they say? That's not a company that's on the major news stations, so I can't trust it. That's nonsense. Trust me when I believe, or I'm sorry, believe me when I say, and trust when I say that you need to see both sides of what's happening here. And this right here is a prime example of what's happening. When they say death to America, and yet they're being nice at the same time. When they're talking about the BLM protests and that turned into riots, that turned into burning down buildings, and they're saying, well, the vast majority of the time they were being peaceful. Yes, you're right. The vast majority of the time, if you're counting the minutes versus how many minutes they're in upheaval. But when a group of people when it's talking about death to America, is burning down buildings, is burning federal buildings, military vehicles, police vehicles. We have a lot of things going on in America right now, and it's scary to see the media just downplaying a lot of these things. And what happened on January 6th, by no means, I would never defend that. That was a horrific, horrific day for our country. At the same time, there was not thousands of people that went into that building. There were quite a few people that went into that building, and they should be held accountable to going in that building. They should never have gone in there. They should have never broken windows. They should have never done anything to put themselves in a position that they will be equivalent to the destruction that other protests have gotten to. They should have never done it. And we are treating the people who were just happened to be at the January 6th protests. They just happen to be there. We're treating them worse than the Taliban here. Let's call a spade here on the CNN news. Let's bring up that last thing about Florida. I want to talk to you. This is something that I talked to my buddy here, and I told him that I wanted to ask him a question. He lives down in Florida. His entire family just got COVID. I'm telling you, they all got COVID. They all got it pretty bad. A lot of people in New York, especially the more liberal-leaning Democrats, they look at Florida as just an absolute disgrace, right? Florida is not New York. How they are running Florida is not how we're running New York. And that's probably a good thing because Florida is killing it. They're killing it. And that's without any state income tax. Can you imagine if New York State didn't have state income tax? Would we be able to do anything with social programs? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And they're killing it down there while keeping freedoms open and alive, while keeping schools open, while allowing the children to go to school and get the education at the same time, having the ability to see their friends and really build up that camaraderie with other people instead of being home alone in front of a computer, where we've seen an uptick on family violence. We're talking about not just parents beating kids, but parents beating each other. We're talking about kids committing suicide. we're talking about some really bad things that happened in our country in the past 18 months due to the mental health issues of COVID. And I want to reiterate to New York voters, and that's why I asked them here. I asked them a question for my podcast. Given the COVID exposure your whole family has just gone through, and we're talking about 2 kids that are under teenage age, one who's a teenager, his wife, himself, his brother, I'm talking everybody got exposed to COVID. I asked him, would you still vote for DeSantis and his handling of this pandemic? His answer says it all. Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. Because Governor DeSantis, allowed the families and the parents to decide for themselves. And that is the American way, to allow people to have the freedom to choose how they want to handle their own health. Now, let's get to my illustrious guest here, who is sitting there watching me go through this whole thing. And this has nothing to do with her feelings on anything. Now we're going to have a conversation together with Miss Mercedes Vazquez Simmons. How are you?
Hey there. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you being here. And it's great because my family knows your family, has known your family for a very long time, because your mom has been very active in the community. Talk to me about that, growing up with your mom being so active in the community, growing up where you grew up. How did you become who you are today, who is about to win the vote for county legislator? Congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Whooped absolute ass in that vote. And
I dragged.
Right. what talk to me about your upbringing and how you became the Mercedes you are today.
Oh, wow. The Mercedes I am today. That's a great story. But all of who I am today, I owe it to my mother. My mother came to this country in the mid 60s. She married my dad here, and it just so happens they're from the same hometown in Puerto Rico. She married him here in the U.S.
What hometown?
Galle.
All right. Shout out.
That's right. Shout out to Galle. And my mother was active in Puerto Rico. And of course, like most that migrated from Puerto Rico, they stop in New York City and then somehow migrate up, right? My father worked in farm, right, agriculture. And so they end up in Rochester, New York. My father worked at Kodak and
nice.
Many, many years, and he was able to retire. So shout out to Kodak, right? Because we're hoping that things can still turn around for Kodak. And my mother took a field in education. She retired from the Rochester City School District after like 35 years.
Oh, bless her heart.
My mother worked above and beyond.
Nice.
But my mother has always been active. She's a civil rights activist. She was responsible. She was one of many women, right, who took a stand against having to take that literacy test that was required for most Latinos or most non-English speakers. And it was a fight. It was a fight because in their mind, if you can't read a ballot, you shouldn't make a decision. But here's the thing is folks that come here, we form opinions. We see the media. We understand it. Just because we can't just because we can't speak the language doesn't mean we shouldn't have an opinion. We're taxpayers. We should contribute as far as our voting rights. So my mother fought to have that requirement removed, which is that literacy exam. And the rest is history. She's been active in her community, everything from education, fair wage, equitable housing, everything. She's been in very active in the church community as well, the Catholic community. So we have been part of this system for a very, very, very long time. As a child, I remember I was, 5 or 6 years old. I was helping canvass for
That's
Tim
awesome.
Maines. We've done everything. Nancy Padilla, who we hoped would be the first Latina mayor.
Yeah.
It was just so many folks that we were part of the campaign and part of the political scene. I just didn't see myself as being part of this. I'm a boxing promoter. Listen, I could talk crap like the rest of the guys. Being in the male-dominated industry, it had its own challenges. But never did I envision that I'd take an active role in politics. I did my due diligence by voting, right? I did that and made sure to educate as many people as I could on different candidates, but I just never saw myself in that position.
Well, it's hard to see it when you don't have someone that looks, sounds, reminds you of yourself in that position, right? And you probably want to bring the microphone up to you a little bit more just in case.
Sorry about that.
You can move it. It's movable.
Oh, is it?
Bring that arm around you.
Check.
There you go. Just in case. Austin, is she good? Got a producer Austin back there to
All
make sure
right.
you're
Thank
good.
you, Austin.
But yeah, it's you know, a lot of folks don't realize how hard it is to look up and see people who you would love to aspire to be like, but they don't remind you of you. So you don't really you take it like maybe that's a far-fetched idea. Is that how you took it as well?
Yeah, I think there's some points to that I would agree with, right? I saw many great politicians come through, and then just Nancy Badija is a great example of it.
Shout out to
Unfortunately,
Nancy.
I know she is such an inspiration. I think of her and just everything that I mean, she really just broke all kinds of barriers for Latina, for women. So I look at her and I she's one of my mentors, and I completely respect her for what she has done and if she what continues to do, right? Because she's still active in the community. But you're right. If you don't see anyone that has the same values, have the same background, it's very difficult for you to imagine. It really took a situation to happen to my mother, and if there's time, is there time for me
Go
to share
ahead.
this with you?
This is the conversation we have
Okay,
here.
so great. So here it is.
Because I'm sure there's other people out there that want to know not only about your history, but if there's a way that they can connect with you on a personal level.
Sure.
You're seeing as you're about to be their legislator.
That's right.
Many people might be watching this, and there's people across the globe. I am worldwide with this.
All right.
So you might be
this is
impacting
great.
someone's life that you've never known. Go ahead.
Well, this is great. This is listen, the mere fact that we're having a conversation, this is great. And we have to continue having conversations, even if it's, conversations that are uncomfortable, they're necessary. Right. We absolutely have to get out of this nonsense of, oh, maybe these are subjects you don't want to talk about. We should be having these conversations.
I agree. And I want to put a footnote in that before you get into the conversation with your mom. Myself and Mercedes, we don't believe in the same things. We were actually on a WXXI interview together, and we had very contrary beliefs on a lot of things, but that doesn't mean that we can't have a personal relationship or that we can't work together. It blows my mind that people just don't understand that you can actually enjoy a conversation with another person that does not believe in the same things you do. That blows my mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can agree to disagree and still be respectful. Everyone says, you seem to have a great relationship with Bob Lonsberry. He is one of my favorite people in the whole world. I may
say the same about me.
I may not agree with him on some things, but this man is genuine. He's unapologetically authentic.
Right.
The mere fact that both of you, and I think that's something you have in common, is you both serve your country. My son is currently stationed in Italy.
Oh, good for him.
Right. So and my brother who's serving the military.
What a crappy location to be sent to.
I know. What a horrible thing.
You better send him a care package.
My brother is retired Navy, and he went back as a contractor. I mean, this is how much he loves. Our family loves this country for the opportunities that present itself. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. We see discrimination every single day. But we're having a lot of false narratives that are being, in fact, just in a recent podcast, it was supposed to be religion and politics interconnecting, where I've never seen so much hate being spurred. And I said, wait a minute, where's the religious part?
Yeah.
And this is a part where I think they've even called me a white supremacist, or that I'm linked to a white supremacist, or that I am a white supremacist. Like, what is that about? I was born and raised in one of the poor zip codes in this area. I'm very proud of that, because it molds me into the person that I am. We worked every single day. My mother refused to take public assistance. In her mind, the government would own you.
Right.
You have to have some level of pride. And that's what my mother said. Now, it's not to say that if you take public assistance that you're less than a person. It shouldn't define you as a person. So she said, we will work 4 or 5 jobs, but we will make it through. Now, I didn't have all the luxuries growing up. In fact, everyone knew who I was because I had my brother's hand-me-downs. I'm a girl. Why do I have a boy's hand-me-down? But we were dirt poor. But my brother said it best. We never had to do without. My mother is such an inspiration. Gabriel, yes.
We were poor, but never in need of anything, he says.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's awesome. We never did without, because my mother instilled these values to say we should always want to push forward. Now, my mother worked several jobs just to make ends. It was a difficult time. And I won't tell you, like people say, you live such a great life. You travel, you're in boxing, you meet all these celebrities.
Must be nice, right? They say it must be nice.
Nothing ever came to me. I've had to bust my butt, and more so in a male-dominated industry. It's been a challenge. And even in an industry where it's it's not dominated by Latinos. Latinos are in a ring, right? In a boxing ring.
They're the ones putting their lives in danger.
Not, right. We're not in the management. We're not part of it. In fact, I'm one of very few promoters that still hasn't secured a network contract, which I'm hoping that changes. I'm having an event on November 18th.
Hey, keep me involved. Keep me in the loop.
And again, it's not about hand-me-downs. I'm not going to take something that I didn't work for, but I'd like an opportunity. I'd like to have a seat at the table too.
Right.
Which, here we go. Well, let's talk about government. We were represented in the district that I'm in. And let me just reverse, because we were talking about what happened and what really pushed me. What was that defining moment in my life that caused me to actually say, you know what, I'm going to run. It was primary 2020. It's presidential primary 2020. Our community was very excited. We are a small but mighty Latino community. We finally have a candidate that we can stand by, who's running for a seat. This is historic by many means. So as a community, we were excited to finally have someone, and her name is Hilda Etchert. Amazing. She was CEO of one of the largest non-for-profit organization in this area. We were proud. It was a proud moment. We backed her, we supported her, and here it is. Los Flamboyanes, which is located in the 14605. We have the largest Latino population.
Shout out to the Flambos.
That's right. Here it is, the week of election. I'm calling into the Board of Elections just to make sure that there is translators. I volunteer there. There's a senior center in Los Flamboyanes, and that's an area that absolutely I'm passionate about, which is the seniors. So I called just to make sure that there was a translator. We have a large Latino population that uses that as a poll site. And honestly, that's one of the oldest poll sites, Los Flamboyanes. I was surprised, considering the fact that my mother, who lives in the area, didn't get the notice that there would be a poll site change. So here it is. Everyone's still thinking they're going to march over to Los Flamboyanes to cast their vote. And it wasn't until the week of that I found out that the poll site changed.
Right.
There was no notice. I work in a small not-for-profit right within Flamboyanes.
Right. Even
building management didn't know that poll site was going to change. So of course I'm calling board. Why wasn't the community informed? It's COVID. Everything was tagged into COVID. And I thought to myself, why wasn't the public informed? We have now 2 radio stations, right? Why wasn't the community informed? COVID. And by the time we get it over there, it's just COVID.
Right.
It was nonsense. So I quickly rented a van, which cost like $700-800, because I knew I had to transport my seniors and different voters over to the poll site, which is maybe a quarter of a mile, but it was it's 2 of the busiest intersections in that area.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous.
Absolutely.
We've got an issue with motorcycles. I don't know if anyone knows, but we have some serious issues in that area with traffic and those motorized bikes. So I quickly got into action. Okay, let's see if we can get as many notices into the 14605 or anyone else that votes in that poll site.
And mind you, this was not a year that you were running for anything. This was you stepping up for your community and saying we need to do something. Instead of complaining about it on Facebook, you went and did something about it.
I did that too, by the way.
Well, you can back it up though. If you back it up with action, you can say whatever you want online. Just back it up with action.
I appreciate that. Yes. Listen, and I'm glad you said that, because so many people will go on social media. If you don't take action, that's just smoke.
Yeah, we ain't got time for all that.
Right, we really don't.
About that action
that's right, it's about that. So we quickly got into action. We had folks come down 5-6 o'clock in the morning. I'm getting calls from Doña Monza who's saying, "Hey, listen, I'm ready to go vote." Okay. Now they're going into a small poll site, one that they're not familiar with. It's a new system. Everyone that's there is new. And it became awkward. It was very quickly at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. Now they're being COVID safe. I couldn't go in, which I'm used to going in just in case there's any concerns.
Right.
You're talking about senior citizens, Latinos. English isn't their first language. The process is already stressful because now you have a new system, you have new ballots, and the font was about this big. I couldn't even see this. So as voters, I took several dozen vanfuls to the same poll site, and they were like, yo como no vi el nombre de Hilda. I didn't see Hilda's name. And I'm like, oh no, we missed a vote. At 12 o'clock, my mother does it like clockwork. She goes to the poll site. Here I am. She's one of the people in the van.
Right.
Drop her off at the poll site. And my mother, again, civil rights activist, she's done so much in this community. And she's also worked polls. She's worked as a translator. She's worked as an inspector. So she gets it. She gets the logistics that happen.
It's not her first
rodeo. It's not her first rodeo. And guess what? She knows her district.
Mm-hmm.
She knows her district. So when she went in there and, they presented her with an iPad. My mother doesn't do electronics. She doesn't. She's like, where's the book?
Right.
Get the book out.
Right.
So the lady's like, no, you have to key in your name because of COVID. And it was just, she was like, wait a minute. So the lady finally helped her out with it. And it was quick. My mother said it was very quick and apparent to her that this woman had zero patience and minimal training. So finally they gave her ballot. My mother looks at this ballot. Now, mind you, this is a big primary. This is the presidential primary.
Right.
She's looking. No Hilda Etcher. She said, oh, no. I have the wrong ballot. I need my ballot.
And she knows her ballot. She knows her district. She knows who's running.
That's right.
And Latinos knew that Hilda was running.
Absolutely. Everyone, I'm telling you, 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting calls.
Yeah.
You're ready to pick me up? The polls don't open until 6.
Right.
I'll be there.
They're excited.
They're very excited.
They were excited.
This is the first time that we actually have a candidate,
right,
a viable candidate for Senate. This is a very exciting moment for Latinos.
Mm-hmm.
My mother said, there's a problem. She said, no, this is the right one. She was like, oh, yeah. And quickly they were going to turn it as, now it's her fault.
Right.
Because, we don't have a translator.
Right. You don't know how to read. Right.
Right. My mother speaks perfect English. She's an educator. She worked at number 8 school and retired from the Rochester School District. She speaks English. Right. She reads English too. And they're like, yeah, we don't have a translator. Another issue, one of the highest Latino population, you don't have a translator. By law, you have to have it. We continue. She's going to insist on it. And she's like, well, this now she's getting upset with my mother and almost, she nudges my mother. She takes the ballot and says, and then you can leave if you're not going to vote.
God.
This is not the person you want to do this. My mother is she says, I'm going to sit.
A civil rights activist.
That's
You're not
right.
Tell her, no,
she says,
right.
I am not leaving here until I cast my vote.
Right.
My mother sat and called me. She says, you need to come in here. We have a problem. Mind you, my mother was one of, I think, 6 people I took, that fit in the van.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all waiting. And they're like, oh, you guys can't sit here. There's not enough space. You have to get up. And literally was grabbing my mother's arm and pushing her out the door. This became a big issue. As I'm walking in, I'm looking at this. I'm like, why are you so hostile to my mother? My mother.
Right.
This is not going to happen. So we were on the phone with BOE. And I wasn't able to connect with
the Board of Elections.
Yes, I'm sorry, the Board of Election. And I wasn't able to connect with the interim. She was interim commissioner, Lashana Boose.
Who I ran against, if anyone wants to remember that. Who I ran against for my position.
Oh, then we are her 2 favorite people.
Right.
But and not to discredit anything, I'm sure she's a wonderful person, but I don't think she was fit to run the Board of Election. I don't know what she's doing now, and I hope she's successful at what she's doing, but Board of Election wasn't it. And more so, this is such a big election.
Yeah.
I called her, left her a message. This was at 12:05. I get a text message from her.
Noon. Maybe
7 o'clock at night.
Right.
Hey, I hear, and it was a random, hey, I hear you're having issues with a ballot, a ballot? It was almost so random. Like, yes, who is this? And when she said Lashana Boose, I lost my mind. Have you lost your mind?
And this would be a very good reason why she is no longer at the Board of Elections and why she handedly got beat by a Latina.
Yes.
So I will.
A capable individual.
Very capable.
Yes.
I'm sad to see her off of city council. She was one of my peers, and I look up to her very well because she is a very good middle ground person. I love Jackie. Shout out to Jackie Ortiz for being a middle ground person. You can never know where she is until she makes her decision, and that's
sure.
She tried teaching me that. I wasn't listening to it. I like.
It's she's got that poker face. She's got, but I think that her decisions are sound. And
Absolutely.
They're based on the needs of the community.
Absolutely.
That's why I think she gets she's got one of the higher voter turnout when she runs.
Yeah, so she kills it. Or she did.
Really did. She really did. It'll be interesting to see where her career ends because I think there's more to her story.
I believe so as well.
And there's great staff at the Board of Elections. There's a woman there, Maureen. incredible. There's Linda. There's a great resources at the Board of Election that are there for the people.
Right. No matter what faction you're in, they're there for the people.
Absolutely.
And you brought up, you talked quite a bit about the Latinos and Clinton section as well. Talk to me about your feelings on the PR Fest, because the Puerto Rican Fest that we had at the new International Plaza. I know you had spoken up a little prior to a couple of days ago, Friday, Thursday, you spoken up about it. How do you think it went? And what were your big concerns?
So I am a huge fan of the Puerto Rican Festival, being that I'm a Puerto Rican queen, right? The festival queen. I did it for 2 years.
Yeah, all good for you.
And my mother was
I've never been nominated for Puerto Rican queen. I don't know why they have yet to.
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
I think it's sexism. Continue.
But my mother was part of a committee that helped save the Puerto Rican Festival because, the history was that it was tied into an agency. And when the funding was over, unfortunately they had to make the cuts and the festival was that. So I remember selling chocolate bars to save the festival. And here it is. I was a young person selling chocolates throughout the county trying to save a Puerto Rican festival. So I'm thrilled to see that we've celebrated 51 years of it. And I'm thrilled that we were able to celebrate this year. I was cautious I was a little concerned about the location. I don't think the location was adequate for it. Quite frankly, and I told everyone this, I think that as Latinos, we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard.
Personal accountability.
Yes, we should demand a larger location,
right?
A larger venue. It has nothing about, again, I just don't think the scale was appropriate. The venue was appropriate to the scale.
The venue is usually good for hundreds of people, maybe,
yes.
And not during a pandemic, and we usually get tens of thousands of people at the Puerto Rican Festival.
That's right.
So when we're talking about being able to handle the amount of people that would come there, especially on a very busy road like Clinton section, that's an extremely busy road.
I was concerned for the safety and for the health.
Right.
COVID, the Delta variant, that is real, and it's real in our community. It's a zip code with the lowest vaccination rates. So you factor all these in. My phone was like constantly, Mercedes, is this really going to happen? Please stop this from happening.
Right.
These are folks that live in the community.
Latinos that live in the community.
Or two. It was, you have to, and we have to be careful when we're having a conversation about the Latino community, we always look for the same 2 or 3. No, the community is vast.
Oh my God, that irks me so much.
Right. And here's the thing is, when they say, well, my community, but you really haven't had a conversation with the Latino community. Have a conversation with, apartment 405 in Los Flamboyanes or an Avenue A or
come to Charlotte. We got a bunch of Latinos over there that have some things to say.
Really, and the Latino community is very diverse.
Absolutely. We believe all different things. And usually when you're on the island, it's funny because they are all involved with politics on the island. Every single person shows up to vote. And then they come to New York and then they just disregard everything. That was another conversation I wanted to bring up. But go ahead, continue with your thoughts on the Puerto Rican Festival. We can get into the other.
Yes. I'm glad that there wasn't any issues. Orlando was a very organized person.
That's the president of the Puerto Rican Festival.
Yes, he's a president of the Puerto Rican Festival. He runs a tight ship, and I'm glad again that we were able to have a Puerto Rican festival this year with no issues. I wish them continued success. I'm always going to support the Puerto Rican Festival at that capacity, but I don't think the Marqueta is the right venue for it. I think we should have a Festival del Barrio, a smaller scale one, which St. Michael's had one. Right. And that was part of their fundraiser. I think we should continue that. If I think about Puerto Rico, right? In Puerto Rico, you have the church in the town, and there's always that town. That concept is beautiful. We should celebrate that, but do it safely so it's not a public safety issue.
Right.
It was a public safety. I had anxiety. And again, I'm so glad that it went out without a hitch. I was handing out these little COVID safety packets. If you're going to be there, here you go.
And that is something I'm going to bring up as well, because I really love the fact that you are one of the very few people who I can say do not have a double standard when it comes to COVID. I want to bring up a picture. Now, this is not to show anybody else in the picture. This is to show you off here. You showed up to an event. You wore your mask. It was a very tight quarters. There was about 75 people there. I showed up. I did not wear a mask, but you go online and you see my posts about, look, it's your decision to wear a mask or not. You have your mask right next to you. You were inside here. You're at the studio now. We have the distance far away from each other here.
Check this out. Yes.
Right. So I appreciate you not having the double standards there. Again, that has nothing to say with the other people that are in the picture because I don't know their stances, but you have been consistent with your stance on the vaccine, on the masking, on making sure that we're outreach. And I appreciate that. So I wanted to highlight that you do what you say.
That's right.
And it's very hard to find that. So for you to be going into elected position, this says a lot about you. This is character right here. This is character right here. And I want to give you so much love for this. I would never be caught with my mask on, but you stick to your gun. This is you.
I am.
I appreciate that.
You know,
Let's go to the next conversation. You can pull that picture down again.
It goes to my constituents. I live in one of the poorest zip codes and one of the most least vaccinated. I see the results of COVID. I had COVID when it first started, and I'm healthy. And it was a struggle for me. My mother, who's 82 years old, she's probably going to kill me because she's listening to this podcast, right? She's like, why would you tell my
shout out?
Mom, you're fabulous 82, Miss Cologne. And, my mother is affectionately known as the mayor of North Clinton, of the barrio. But, honors like that aren't just given. You earn it. She's
earned it many times over.
This just didn't happen overnight. This is decades of
consistent and persistent work. And that's hard to say about a lot of people because a lot of people, when they don't see the results after a week, 2 weeks, couple months, that they just fall off and say, you know what, I'm not seeing the results, so I'm just going to quit. Right. And it again speaks to the character of you and your family and how you're raised, that you never give up, and it shows in who you are as a person. And you don't. I'm
not very popular with certain things, though. Let me tell you, there's some things even within our Latino community.
You're talking to the wrong person about that. I
They're
speak
like,
about
Mercedes, can you go along with this agenda? I could care less that your funding is tapped into this. If it's not for the betterment of my people long term, then I want no part of it.
Right.
So
I'm with you on that. Everyone wants you to fall in line, but don't. No. Something I'm also very proud about, and this is another thing I'm going to show you. I'm not sure if you've seen this before. I did pose it.
I'm nervous.
Pull up the conversation that your opponents had with me last year. Read this guy. All right. This is Vince Felder, the person you beat. You and your whole, he's saying it to me. All right. After I had won, and I called some people out on how they are just sucking at the teats of the freaking mother mayor. And they didn't, he didn't like that. He did not like that at all. No. He said, you and your whole team are a bunch of losers. Now, Mercedes, you're not on my team. There is no team, right?
That's right.
We work together when we believe in another person. But that doesn't mean that we're any team. Just because we're Latinos, we're not a team. Just because we're Democrats, we're not a team. Just because we are Latino and Democrats doesn't mean we're a team.
That's right.
You and your whole team are a bunch of losers who hate from the sidelines. You lucked your way into a seat on city council. You are nothing to accomplish. You're not, so her whatever insults you want, blah, blah, blah. You and your team will always be in the peanut gallery trying to make $1 out of 15 cents. A bunch of low-life losers. This is a sitting legislator who you whooped the snot out of. And a bunch of low-life losers who are going to continue to be disappointed and walk around complaining about the people who have the real power. Scroll back up so people make sure they see that name of the person who no longer is going to have a job after January 1st. You're going to be in his position.
Oh man, so it's tough to read. It's tough to read things like that, and more so from an elected official.
It's not tough for me to read it at all. I told this guy, you're going to eat your words. You're going to eat your words. He's having it for lunch, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I hope he's watching. I hear a lot of I don't want to say lefties. I want to say woke. A lot of the woke crowd, a lot of that crowd watch this just to find things to, complain about me with. And go ahead and screenshot that all you want, because
social media is such a powerful tool.
Hey, and I hate to be I hate to be that guy that brings up old things, but man, when you whooped the snot out of him, that was a glorious day for me personally, and I'm sure a glorious day for other people. So I appreciate you beating that ass.
My inbox was completely filled with people that said it's over.
Yes,
and that's such
it was a whole faction for anyone out there that doesn't live in Rochester. There was a whole faction of leaders in the city who I did also call out and say they weren't doing the right things, and I was called racist for it. And I know they weren't doing the right things on many different levels, and that there were a bunch of people who were in the background just waiting to have a chance to run against them. This year, I would say all but one person of that entire faction ended up losing. Not the entire faction, but it was good to see the ones who let the power get to their heads. How had mighty have fallen.
That's right.
God tells you in the Bible, don't be a pompous jerk, all right? Because it's gonna end up coming back on you.
It was a beautiful day when the voters spoke.
When a voter spoke up.
We can go on social media. In fact, we'll go back to why I've decided to run. I posted. There was a picture of Los Flamboyanes and say our right to vote has been violated. My mother sat there until she received. Well, she has a ballot without Hilda's name. She called BOE without a response. We called BOE. We had to wait for a translator, which is an hour and a half. Why are we waiting for a translator? So finally, my mother's just like, she's in tears. She's upset. We call our attorney. My mother was so upset because, again, everything that she fought since 1965. Here it is. How does this happen? How did we get here? So we're on the phone with our attorney, and shout out to Carlos Rodriguez for always, always having our people, the voice of the poor, and just the fight, right? He still has the fight in him. And he says, we're going to fight this. So he says, just write her name, Hilda's name, on the ballot.
Right.
Well, when you have a ballot and you've already made your selections, right? Because she was forced to vote. My mother wrote in big letters, Hilda on it. Hilda Etcher. So what happens when you have multiple, on a ballot? The ballot becomes invalid.
Right.
So BOE will tell you, oh, she casted her vote. Oh, absolutely. We tried 3 times. And at the 3rd attempt, it says invalid ballot. So what happened to her vote?
Oh, it probably got lost, but what you're supposed to do is manually count it.
Right. You're supposed to manually, but here it is. These inexperienced people who are doing all this new technology. My mother wasn't familiar with all this technology. She was overwhelmed by it, as many seniors that were there. The folks that were there weren't trained. It was a new group. Typically, we have the League of Women Voters. We have folks that have experience with voting, voter rights, and the technology. Zero was happening that day. And here we're talking about a room that was 1/3 of the space at Los Flamboyanes. I had COVID concerns. My mother's, at the time, I think she was either 80, 81 years old. This is a big issue for me. The hostility, the tension, and the room was super crowded because there was about 15 people that didn't know what they were doing. I put on social media, our right to vote, blah, 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 and talked all about it. Instantly, I got a text message from my opponent to say that I needed to take that post down. That wasn't true.
From your opponent?
From who now was my opponent, but who was supposed to be the representative.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, the representative.
Very, very
part of that faction, who the Board of Elections.
This was the legislative representative for that same district that this was
the person that's supposed to represent you.
So you would think that his course would say, Mercedes, where are you? Let's meet. Let's fix this.
Let's figure this out.
No, it became a personal attack. And it became like, I didn't know what I was doing. What are you doing? Take that post down. Almost demanding, almost like a bully tactic. Well, I'm not
weird.
Right.
Weird that they would bully.
Right. So of course now I'm going to talk about Lashana Booth because she gave herself an A+. I don't know what school you went to, honey. You got to eat. It was terrible. It was terrible in the lack of regard to the Latino community.
Yeah, it was a slap.
And anyone who wanted to vote, because it wasn't just Latinos that wanted to vote for Hilda. It was a complete disregard to the voters' right. And then let's add Latinos because she can care less. She didn't even give me the courtesy. Call me. You text me at 7 something saying, okay, we took a new ballot. Okay.
Let me get all the same people over there with 1 hour left.
And they won't be able to vote again.
Right.
The damage is done. At a minimum, not that it makes it right, apologize. They gave themselves A. We have no issues. It was almost like a case of like, what world are you living in?
Yeah.
This was crisis. Something went terribly wrong, and you're not taking accountability.
And these are the types of things that a lot of people who are not actively involved in politics have no idea what's happening. This is like that background stuff when really it should have been in the forefront. There should have been right smack dab in people's faces because this shouldn't be Latinos getting upset about this. Right. This is anyone who cares about the sanctity of the vote, right? The sanctity of the vote should always be upheld. And I know that we've had some issues in the past couple of years that, on a national level where people feel as though their vote's not counted. This happened locally here where a person who was supposed to be on the ballot, who we had an entire, Latino group of people who were excited to finally vote for someone who represented from their, it's not our country, but it's from our island. We're still Americans. And to anyone out there who's seeing this and thinking that it's more divisive because we're talking about Latinos, this is inclusive here because we're talking about the same things that you're talking about. We're talking about the sanctity of the vote. We're talking about how when you show up to vote, you expect to have the right people on the ballot. And when you vote, you expect your vote to be counted. This is across the board. This is not something to be negotiated or said or swept underneath the rug. This is a issue that has happened here locally in recent past. And thank God we got somebody in there quickly afterwards, voted a new Board of Elections commissioner in, and she handled the general election a lot better. It was a lot smoother.
Absolutely.
A whole lot
And you
smoother.
know what? Shout out to the entire staff over at BOE.
Because it takes a team.
Job.
It takes a team, and it's not just one person.
It really does. When you have representatives that completely disregard the issues that plague our community, that's a big issue. What I started to do, that's sort of there was a moment of awareness. It was an aha moment. I said, if this guy represents us, boy, we are in trouble.
Right.
And I took responsibility to say, why haven't I been active? I started questioning myself to say, how do we change this?
Mm-hmm.
And in having conversations, again, I'll go back to my conversation with our representative at the time. He said it didn't matter. Hilda wasn't going to win. No one will ever vote a Latina in the office. And I said to myself, we've got to get this guy out of here. Not really understanding the dynamics, right? The dynasty that existed.
Right.
Not really understanding. All I said, and I told him, I will have your seat.
Nice.
Period. And he has this podcast where religion and politics interconnect, and it's the most vile thing I've ever heard.
Oh, it's his podcast?
Oh yeah, it's the most vile thing that I've ever
oh my God.
heard. I encourage everyone to listen to it.
Hey, he should have me on. He should have me on because I talk about.
Of course, they're not going to have you on.
He should have me on. Talk about politics and religion. That is up my alley.
But the conversations that they're having on this podcast had nothing to do with either one.
Yeah,
I would give it some level of validity if it had that. It's a platform of hate. I've never seen anything like that. I don't know what religion they're part of. Certainly not mine.
Not the one of love.
Not the one of love.
Yeah, or the wrong kind of love because they be sending pictures of love to 19-year-old girls out there. I'm gonna let that one alone. Leave that one alone.
I don't want those love pictures.
Yeah, I don't want those love pictures either. Anyways,
send that to your wife. Say that.
Right. Oh my God, please. You brought up Father Tracy a little while ago. Explain to some people who don't know who Father Tracy is or was, unfortunately, to this day. Explain to the people watching who Father Tracy was, but also, more importantly, what he meant to the Latino community over in your district and all around at this point.
Absolutely. Well, today marks the 3rd year anniversary of his death. And I'll tell you, those 3 years have been some of the longest years. Father Tracy was not only a Catholic priest, this man was a hero. He was a hero to the voiceless. He was a hero to the poor, to the weak. He just loved everyone.
He was a true priest.
He was a true priest.
Actual priest that took care of the sick, the elderly, the poor, those in need.
The word. He went above and beyond. Right. And in some instance, he didn't agree with the Diocese of Rochester on some things, and he stood up for the poor. Often in the Catholic Church, they'll place priests in different areas. Mm-hmm. He was defiant. He said, no, I want to continue working. And in some cases, he was without pay. So the community helped out. My mother was instrumental in many of those fundraising efforts, but people willingly gave because they knew we had a true champion. This man has been to more bautismos, baptisms, quinces, weddings, funerals. He was part of everyone's family. Boy, he advocated. Not only was he, a man of God, but he was also a public servant. He was at any issue that we had, he was there. Education, housing, workforce issues. He was there. I remember the last protest he did was with a union, 1199, fighting for the workers over at Jordan. He was there where it was needed. And mind you, he sat on the board of Jordan.
Right.
Just because you sit on a board doesn't mean you have to agree with it.
Right.
You know, we talked a little bit about being part of it, but not necessarily having to agree on it. He was where the people needed him to be at all times. Never did he waver from that commitment to his community. When Father Tracy passed away, and I was his caretaker towards the end.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yes. I was his caretaker. And I remember when he was in hospice and being completely touched by the amount of people of different religious backgrounds. We had Muslims, we have folks within the Jewish community, came to pay respects. They would kiss his hand. They would have a conversation with Father. And Father Tracy wasn't able to communicate, and he was too weak to almost write because he was, unfortunately, he was diagnosed with ALS, and within months, it compromised his life. But till the very end, he was a public servant, driving his little cart down Clinton Avenue. I don't know how, and I want to talk to the mechanics on Clinton that sort of kind of adjusted the speed limit on his little cart.
They took the governor
this
off.
Man would go like 50 miles an hour on that little cart in his wheelchair, up and down the barrio, and people would stop him for a hug. People would stop him and say, "Padre, would you bless me?" And he would. Father Tracy, didn't matter if you were a CEO of a company or you had substance abuse on North Clinton Avenue or wherever within the city of Rochester.
Mm-hmm.
He respected everyone and treated everyone the same. That's why so many people loved him. Father Tracy had I believe it was a 2 or 3 day funeral, and it was packed all 3 days. It was televised. The mayor of the city of Rochester said any property that he wants, he can have. They just didn't expect that he'd want to be on North Clinton Avenue. So that became a logistic. RPD was like, oh no.
Yeah.
We had shuttle buses. It was as if, and I'm going to get emotional about this, but Father Tracy was our hero. And there would be no one else that would ever replace him.
And a lot of people don't realize that it's that kind of work in the community. And it's people, again, it comes back to what we had talked about a little while ago, where people expect outcomes to be immediate. Father Tracy put in decades.
Absolutely.
Decades of work, and it still needs
unwavering
work. Right. But it didn't, exactly. It didn't ever stop him. It never, ever ended. It was consistent and persistent. So the day he passed, and
it continues.
And it continues, right. There, and
he has
again,
a scholarship, which we just gave out the scholarship to one of the Antonettis. So he's...
How much was the scholarship for?
Oh, I can't disclose. All
right. Well, that brings us to the walkathon.
Yes.
I want to bring that up here. You're going to be doing a walkathon for St. Michael's Church, which is the parish that Father Tracy was a priest at. And you are doing a walkathon.
Yes.
What is it for?
Okay, so the organization is Friends of St. Michael's, and it's a nonprofit organization that was created. My mother's the president, and they're community members, true community people from that area, and people who love
not political appointees.
Not political. There's none of the organizations with different interests. It's none of that. It's true grassroots people, because we have people from different religious backgrounds that are part of this group. It's folks who have a genuine interest in preserving the church as it is, as a Catholic church with weekly service, and to be a hub for that community, it's the poorest community. That's what we want to keep intact. So it's Friends of St. Michael's. As I mentioned, it's a nonprofit organization, and we have been tasked. We met with the new priest, right? We have a new priest, and just a little background again on that nonprofit organization, Friends of St. Michael's. It's grassroots individuals. They're people from different walks of life, but still have a core interest in the people that church serves. We're about the church. We're about the community and nothing else. We care that those mahogany doors are open every week to provide services, religious programming. We foresee this to being a hub for the community to offer services, public service, human services, bring the community back and what it was when I was growing up, right? We had religious service, we had youth programming, we had elder program, we had everything there.
What a community church should be about. And that's fantastic, because that church has been there for how long?
decades. The Germans, you know, if you think about it, that's why we fought so hard for it, because there were sacrifices to build that church. The Germans, I met a family, I believe it's the second or third generation. They said, I remember when my great grandfather took a mortgage on their house to help pay for that church. You think about the ultimate sacrifice,
right?
That was something. In fact, he would help build the roof line. So we brought him in to say, hey, can you help with this? It was just, and just to see this group grow is incredible. And we're bringing people from all walks of life. Listen, if you've had a wedding, if you've had, you know, a quince or a birthday party or funeral, you know how beautiful this should have been, in my opinion, the cathedral, the Catholic cathedral, because it's beautiful.
Yeah, if you haven't been there,
right?
If you haven't been there, oh my God, it is.
God,
it is the most ornate, beautiful. I mean,
it's something. It looks like it should be a church out of Europe. It looks, I mean, it's designed, right, with a European design, something you'd see in Rome.
Yeah, it is huge. And I can't believe there's not more weddings there.
Yeah. Well, then that's what it is. We sort of have to market it.
Yep.
We have to do our due diligence, and like any other business, you have to market it.
Right.
Make sure that they know that it's open. We as a community, as a group, we did everything. We wrote to, you know, the priest. We tried working with the priest. We worked with the Diocese of Rochester. And we did everything in our mind possible to keep the church open. Now we have a new priest. He has ideas. We have ideas. And as a community, right, because there's other community and groups that are involved, everyone's doing their part. As Father Chasey would say, you know, you add a little, you add your seeds. We're now watering it. We're going to see this and we're hoping that the community comes back. This isn't just a Latino community. This St. Michael's Church is all community, right?
It's a community hub for the entire neighborhood there, and from all over Rochester. And where can, if people wanted to donate, should they go to, I got a physical paper here. Is there an easy way for people to do like digital quite yet, or?
Well, we have a Facebook page, and I'm going to be putting up the link for that. And if you're going to write checks, write it to Friends of St. Michael's. Again, we're on social media. We're on Facebook. I believe by the end of the day, we'll have a website, but I'll be having that information. It's a 2-mile walkathon, September 18th. It's Saturday, and we're going to do it at Seneca Park. We're going to walk around the pond back there. And then after that, we'll be at St. Michael's Hall, sharing and sharing experiences and being truly in community. Listen, I'm looking for sponsors. Let's just get to it.
Or you're looking to fundraise $70,000.
That's the
within
goal.
The next 6 months.
And let's talk about the $70,000, right? The church right now hasn't had the true maintenance it needs in the last 5 years. I haven't seen a sign in front of St. Michael's in about 5 years.
Yeah.
So our primary goal is getting folks to the church. So what are we going to do? I put a call of action. Let's clean the church. Let's clean the exterior. We had a great group of volunteers that came out and joined me in cleaning. We put new flowers in. We cleaned up the flower beds. We're going to have a sign. Part of the fundraising is to have a new sign put up, because right now we haven't had it in 5 years.
Right.
With our service hours, we're also going to repair the fence, the wrought iron fence. And then there's a statue that's been vandalized several times. Our goal is to have that repaired. I know.
The Virgin Mary. Who's going to vandalize?
No, and who does that?
Oh my God!
But we've forgiven them, and we're really grateful.
I haven't. They owe part of that $70,000. I expect that coming out of their wallets.
This isn't cheap, folks. But I think as a community, we can come together and help save St. Michael's Church.
I believe so as well. And if we reach half of that fundraising goal, then I get to throw our legislator into the pond that we're walking around. That's what she says right here.
Okay.
She said it right here.
I don't know how to swim.
Well, I appreciate the time, and I appreciate you being a voice for the folks in your community, because thank God we needed someone to step up and really be the voice of reason and the voice of those who sincerely feel as though they didn't have a voice. So I really appreciate you. I appreciate the conversations that we always have. Again, we are the epitome of what it is. We don't have to agree on everything, but we still have love for each other. At least I have love for you. And and keep up the great work.
Yeah, keep up the great work. This is this is change.
Yeah.
Right.
It's very, a lot of people don't realize this is, you were seeing you're about to be inaugurated in, you're going to see 2 Latinos on one county, one city. You know, Iversha's on right now.
That's right.
Miguel Melendez is on city council. You know, that's crazy in a city that has never had this many to look up, for little kids to look up and say, oh, I can do it too. Yeah. Now it's like, oh, I can do that. And a lot of people they downplay that as if it's nothing. But if you don't realize that it wasn't that long ago that people didn't know, that they didn't realize they can run a 1 mile race in under 4 minutes until it actually happened.
That's right.
And then after that, everybody could run a 1 mile race under 4 minutes in the Olympics. So
listen, I'm inspired that a CEO of a not-for-profit would even reference LD22. So I'll have to bring them down to LD22 and sort of kind of just say, hey, this is a neighborhood. Let's pass on a torch. I'm on to bigger and better things too. So let's as a community, let's take that political stand. Let's take that opportunity to step up to the plate and represent our people as it should be.
Absolutely. So again, help St. Michael's Church. Go to their Facebook page. Go to your Facebook page, which is
Mercedes Vazquez Simmons is my personal one. And if you're interested in seeing or following me politically, it's Mercedes LD22, and that's also a website, www.mercedesld22. I'm open for discussion. I meet with everyone and everyone. I love to eat too, so definitely make sure that our meeting includes food. Just kidding. But
no, you're not.
I encourage that. And listen, some of the meetings that I'm having, we may not agree politically, and it's okay. I welcome those conversations. I learn from everything. And I tell everyone, if you're not willing to listen, at a minimum, listen to your constituents, you shouldn't be representing them.
Exactly. I appreciate you being that voice of reason. Again, thank you very much for being on the podcast. Make sure you click on like, make sure you share with all your friends, your family, everyone that needs to hear the voice of reason. Make sure you share the Politically Correcting podcast. And again, anyone who has connection to John Leguizamo and Kanye West, I'm still trying to get a hold of them because they will be on this show, damn it. I look forward to that.
I may be able to help you with that.
Holler. See, speaking into existence. Hit that music, Austin.